What's up, everybody? Aloha, aloha Monday here in Hawaii. How everybody doing, guys? Hope you guys having a great week so far. I know it's just day one of the week, but that's okay. Just gotta look for good, positive vibes for this upcoming week. Tonight we have former Lieutenant Governor and Governor candidate Duke Aiona on the show tonight. We're gonna hear his story and share with us his plans for Hawaii should he get elected. Looking forward to the discussion. Wednesday night, uh, I got to go to a conference on Oahu, a drug court conference. So Wednesday night show will be moved till tomorrow night, and we will have Kukana Kama Toth. She's running for House seat District 51 on Oahu. So I know, we got a lot of people from throughout the state watching the show, but again, any candidate that wants to come on and share their platform, share their vision, they are welcome on, and I hope you guys enjoy the information. That again, remember when we started this show almost 3 years ago, it was to inform and educate. Yes, we focused on COVID. We still have our eye on COVID, and obviously, if things change, we will pivot back to COVID. But I think right now, as we are at what I believe are crossroads in our state, we had an opportunity in the primary election to narrow the field, and now we have an opportunity in the general to select our future leaders. And I know I did receive some messages from people asking me uh, why I'm bringing on Republicans. Well, again, I think if you follow my show and you understand my position, it's this is not about party. It's about information. It's about people. It's about candidates. It's about vision, and whatever we can put in front of you all to get you guys informed. I don't care, Democrat, Republican, Independent. It doesn't matter for me. I vote for people, not party, and I hope you guys can respect that. I respect every one of you, and I know there's some hardline Democrats, and I know there's some hardline Republicans, and that's fine. I respect everybody's choice, but I just share my perspective on politics. And that's why I love local politics, because it's nonpartisan. There are no Democrats or Republicans. You don't have to pick and choose. You vote for who you believe will do the best job for our state. And that's where I come from, and I hope you guys can respect that as well. To those of you that question why I bring on Republicans, I think I just explained it. And you know, I am I love information, uh, and regardless of who it's from, it's up to me to do my due diligence to validate or invalidate information that I get, and I do that through my own means. And I would hope that each and every one of you do your due diligence as well when you prepare to vote. I mean, the election time, and again, this year was kind of an opportunity, as I have been sharing for months now, that we had an opportunity at the state legislature elections. Every seat was up. Every seat was up. And I shared with many of you that take a good look at your district, wherever you live. Doesn't matter what island. Look at your district. Or have they served you? And I'm not. This is general. I'm not picking any district, but have they served you in their term? And if not, why would you vote for them again? Again, take the D and take the R out of the picture, and look at the person, look at their background, their history, their accomplishments, their track record, and make the determination. But the bottom line is, have they performed to your expectation? And hey, Dad, sorry, man, you had to take off back home, but I know we'll see you back in November again. So I love you, pops. I hope you're feeling better up there. We'll see you soon. So basically, that's why I don't look at the DNR. I do not. Uh, Anyone wants to come on the show and share their platform, the door is wide, wide open. Let me get some water here. I got my village cup. Mm. Like I told you guys, man, no more coffee for me. Not so much coffee anyway. It's gonna be water. Well, I got all my family. My auntie Maureen is on. Gosh, we got a bunch of people on already. Normally, 7 o'clock is the witching hour. That's when everybody pops on. So, um, hey, how's that Little League World Champions, man? Um, the one who gave Kawhi the threat is back in because his district likes him. Yeah, if the district likes you and they're satisfied, then by all means, vote for him. Absolutely. But if they haven't, then why would you expect any changes, right? But anyway, how's those Little League World Champions? Awesome, awesome, awesome. What an accomplishment. I think that's the best Little League team we've had in the history of Little League World Series worldwide. 60 runs scored against 5 runs given, I think it was. That's incredible. And if you got a chance to watch the games, these guys all they can pitch, they all can hit, they can bang. I mean, what an amazing job Coach Oda and his staff has done with those young kids. 12 years old, man. These kids are babies, and they're disciplined. Their technique, their fundamentals are sound. I watched those swings of the bat. Lord have mercy. These kids all got a future, man. I gotta say, I bet most of these kids, if not all of them, are gonna have free college. Uh, they're gonna have offers. Just watching them play, it was amazing. What was bizarre was some of these pages, the Little League pages, the official pages. They were celebrating the victory, and so many people around the country were just celebrating Hawaii's victories, and their championship. And then the haters came on. A couple of these clowns came on to say they all look older than 12. Oh, they were all Asian. How come? Oh, Hawaii should be in their own district. Oh, you cannot help. I try to live a positive life, but when you get idiots like that, that racist, it just upsets me. It just drives me nuts because those kids work hard. They didn't get to where they are because they were cruising and hanging out and going surfing. No, they got to where they are and where they're at today, world champions, because they worked hard. And the most important, as the coach, one of the assistant coaches, I can't remember his name, was on the news tonight in the studio, and he said, what made the difference was these kids were family. They played for each other. There were no friends no more. They were brothers, and there were aunties and uncles, and that's what made the difference. It wasn't any other. It's not because they were taller. It's not because they were bigger. No, it's because they were well coached. They were disciplined, and they had their little spirit, and they loved each other. They played as a team. There were no, the whole. I think they should trademark the "we is greater than me." I think they should really trademark that, because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. We greater than me, and I think that's what did it. That's what did it. So anyway, I just wanted to plug that in, and I got my UH shirt, guys. I saw a lot of people, haters as well, ready to ditch UH. Guys, first game, first new coaching staff, new players, new. Lord have mercy, give the team a chance. Yeah, they didn't look too good. They got a lot of work to do, but my Lord, why would you abandon them now? Come on, guys, let's show our football team the love that we show our little league kids, man. Let's get it done. Anyway, I'm excited tonight, guys, because we got former Lieutenant Governor Duke Aiona, candidate for Hawaii Governor. We just had a discussion. I'm going to bring him on now. He's in the green room. I know he can hear us. It's been a long time. It's been a long time, my friend. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm good. You're right. It's been a long time. So just wanted to add something about the University of Hawaii football team. You're right. I mean, you know, somebody said this. I didn't say it. They set Timmy Chang up to fail. And, whether you agree or disagree with that, it's going to be a tough season. I mean, look how many players he lost through the transfer portal. Brand new coaching staff, as you mentioned, new offensive scheme, new defensive scheme. He playing in a makeshift stadium. I mean, all the odds are against him, but I tell you one thing that Timmy has. He's got the passion, and I know Jacob Euro also. He's very passionate. I can tell you right now, those guys have not slept. I guarantee you, those guys have not slept. So you'll see a different game next week, and we'll see how they improve. I mean, look, whether you lose by one or you lose by 60, a loss is a loss. Okay, so let's leave it at that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and the same applies in politics, Lieutenant Governor. The same apply in politics, man. I mean, my my first election, I lost by 200 and some odd votes, and that one hurt, man. I kind of wish I had lost by 10,000 votes.
Yeah,
It's a lot
yeah.
easier, but anyway, you're right. And Vanderbilt is an SEC team. That's not they're
Yes.
no slouches. These guys
Yes.
are they're top quality athletes, and they had a new program as well. And,
Mhm.
and what made this one really interesting, which is why I really was excited to watch the game, was they had a new program, UH had a new program, and there was absolutely no film available. So there was no opportunity to really scope out the opponent until game day. So uh, yeah, hang tight, guys, and keep the faith, man.
Yeah.
Keep the faith.
Yeah.
How you been? You've been busy guy. How you been a
I've been
busy
good.
guy?
I've been good. And I say aloha to everybody and thank you for the opportunity, Mel. I really appreciate it. Yeah. And you've been busy too. So you're right. I can't remember the last time we spoke.
Well, I'm going to share this story. I don't know if you remember this, but and we'll get into your bio real quickly. But you know, it was my first term. It was 2020, actually. 2020. I mean 2020. The
202.
year 2000,
Right.
2000.
Okay. Okay.
And you were the lieutenant governor.
2002.
Okay, so it would have been in 2002. So that would have been my second term. Brian Baptiste, our mayor at the time, had formed his anti-drug coalition, and he had
Okay.
asked me to sit on that. And you had come to one of our sessions, and I was being Mel Raposo, I was being loud, and I was being obnoxious, and I was being real. And I remember you coming up and saying, "Would you like to sit on my state anti-drug coalition? I need a firecracker like you to 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 be on there." And I was like, wow, the lieutenant governor, I'd never met you before, and like, oh my god, he's asking me. Damn, of course I would want to be on that thing. And I did, and we had a really good time. I think we did a lot of good things. And back in those years, the anti-drug movement was, it was a big thing. It was a buzzword at the time. And
Mhm. Mhm.
20 years later, and we still have the problems. But
Yep.
one of the things that I hope you can share about is how you, and again, as you introduce yourself, how you really facilitated and started the drug court program here in Hawaii, which I think is one of the best things. So I'm going to turn it over to you, sir, and share with our viewers, who is Duke Aiona.
Well, thank you
All
very
you.
much. And again, aloha, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. And very briefly, Mel kind of touched upon just one, I guess you could say, one segment of my life. I've been blessed with just being able to serve the people of Hawaii in so many different ways. But born and raised in on Oahu, had the privilege of attending. My mother was a school teacher in the DOE, and but she was a devout Catholic also. So believed in Catholic education. And back then, now you're talking about in the 50s and 60s, she really believed that the nuns could shape in you up. So I went to a Catholic school. I went to Marino grade school from kindergarten to eighth grade. And yes, it was nuns in habits from kindergarten to eighth grade. There was no lay teachers. Um, I was called James and not Duke. And of course, um, every school year, my parents would go to the first meeting and let the sisters know that they had their permission, their unconditional permission to discipline me in any way they felt best. And at that time, a little bit of corporal punishment was used, but you know, I remember I probably had the most timeouts of anybody in my class in the first grade, so that was pretty cool. Then I matriculated to St. Louis, went to St. Louis, and then went away to school. Was lucky I got some money and went away to University of Pacific in Stockton, and was a great, tremendous experience getting away from home and being on my own. And really appreciating what Hawaii was all about, what the people were all about, and of course what my family was all about. And then came back and went to University of Hawaii. At that time, University of Hawaii School of Law. It was in the Quonset huts in the quarry, and then graduated and was able to clerk for Judge Wendell Huddy. And I tell you, one of the cases why the reason I got hired by Judge Huddy was in the interim between graduation and the law school exam, I had a part-time job with a local bank, and we were reviewing trust forms. And so when I applied to Judge Huddy, I put that down on my resume that I worked with trust, wills and trusts. And he was coming on this big case that involved a trust. So he saw that and he said, "Oh, I see you got some experience with trust." And of course, he didn't get into the details, so I wasn't lying when I said, "Oh, absolutely." But really, all we were doing was reviewing forms and recommending whether it should be upgraded or not. And so, anyway, lo and behold, the big case that he had was, and Mel, I think you might remember this, it was Matsuo Takabuki versus Hung Wo Ching, the original lawsuit between the Kamehameha Schools trustees, and this set the precedent in regards to fiduciary duties and the breach of it. It was a huge case. It lasted for about a year, and I was the law clerk that was assigned to, helping the judge out, and it was a bench trial. So what that means is no jury, and so I had to get the exhibits together, notes for the judge, whatever questions he had, legal questions, etc. Had to respond to that. We had over 1,500 exhibits. The attorneys were fantastic, learned a lot, and that was my first experience, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. Then I went to the prosecutor's office in Honolulu, served for about 3 years, was in the career criminal unit. At that time, the prosecutor was first elected prosecutor was Charles Marsland. I don't know if people remember him, but he was the prosecutor. And then I went with the city attorney's office, also known as Corporation Counsel. I was a deputy prosecutor there, and served for about 5 years. And then I got promoted at a very young age to be the head of the litigation department. And that was a tremendous experience, a lot of responsibility on my part. I was now responsible to manage about 6 or 7 attorneys on staff, as well as I think we have maybe one paralegal. Did some really big cases in the civil side. And then, yeah, I applied for and got appointed to the family court, district family court, the First Circuit. I was very young at that time. I was only 35. And, I like to say that that was very transformational for me. Family court was really about real people with real problems that needed real solutions. And it was real. I found out that it wasn't about the law anymore in family court. It was just about the institution. And that's where I really saw the transformation in me, in understanding, what it meant to be a judge and what I now represented. I represented a tremendous institution that, stood for fairness, stood for justice. It stood for people coming to the courtroom to get wisdom and knowledge and everything else that we had. So I was truly moved by that. And then, of course, I was appointed to circuit court about 3 years later. And I was assigned to the criminal bench, and I got really dismayed by the amount of cases I had on the criminal side. But a lot of those cases involved people who were on probation, and a lot of those cases dealt with people who had been involved with drugs, and as a result of their addiction to drugs and alcohol, they would commit burglaries, commit theft crimes, property crimes, mainly property crimes, but sometimes some violent crimes, murder, violent robberies, assaults, etc. And so the ones that are on probation, a lot of them were on probation for the second or third time. So what would happen is they have an addiction problem. They'd be sentenced to 5 years of probation. And of course, part of the probation conditions of probation was that they receive, treatment. And a lot of times they just didn't go through with it. They didn't follow through with it. So probation officers in frustration would revoke their probation. And what would happen is it would bring it back to court. Your probation is revoked. And then, of course, you are now, the court hears the motion, and 10 out of 10 times they grant the motion. And what happens at that point in time are you're resentenced. So you have a new sentence that begins at the point of that motion. So let's just say your crime was committed in the year 2020, and then and it's for 5 years, and then into the third year, your motion, I mean, you have a motion to revoke your probation, and that motion is heard in 2023, and it's granted, and so therefore you're resentenced in 2023 to, guess what, another 5 years of probation. And so what would happen? They have to do drug treatment, etc. 3 years into that sentence, they don't do it. So 3 years into that sentence, there's another motion for revocation of probation. And guess what? The motion is granted, and 9 times out of 10, the judge will grant the motion and sentence you to what? Another 5 years of probation. So here you are in 2026. And if you had just gone to jail for the 5 years that you were sentenced to, you would have been done with the judicial system. You wouldn't be a part of it. So I was seeing so many cases like that. I said, there's gotta be a better way to that, because as circuit court judges, we only had really two options: jail or probation. And of course, you put your conditions on of probation over the sentence. So I was reading about this concept of drug court, and I said, this sounds like something that could really be beneficial, and more importantly, it would help. It would help us to help these individuals who are addicted to a better way out. And so with a group of people, and I got to give a lot of credit to Darren Kawazoy. He was the program director, and he and his staff, they developed our program. It was a very unique program. And so what had happened originally, drug court was started in Chicago because they had so many drug cases, and what they were trying to do was clear the calendar of these drug cases. So they said, okay, if you stay clean for a year with no conditions attached to it, you just stay clean. You don't get arrested again, etc. At the end of the year, we'll dismiss your case. And that's how they got rid of a lot of cases, and that's how it's called drug court. Well, you fast forward that a few years later, and in Florida, they started adding a treatment component to it. And this is how was the genesis of what we did in Hawaii. We adopted a treatment program, component, I should say, to drug court. And it was the same concept. If you had stayed clean for a year, usually the treatment program was about 18 to 24 months. And if you stayed clean for that period of time, then you would be, your case would be dismissed. And hopefully that would be of great assistance to you in battling your addiction. So we put the program together. Like I said, it was revolutionary. It had never been done before, and it was a tremendous success in the sense of we helped a lot of people who stayed clean and sober immediately. Some people did not, because there's if you are if you're addicted to drugs and alcohol, you know that when it comes to treatment, relapse is a part of recovery. And so sometimes you would relapse, and you fall back, but hopefully you'd had the skills and you had the support group that could get you back on track again. And so even till today, I have people coming up to me. In fact, just about a couple of weeks ago, somebody came up to me and said, hey, Judge Aiona, da 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 da, you remember me? And I really didn't. Then when he said his name, I said, oh yes, absolutely. And he said, thank you. Because of you, I got my life together. And forgot what he was doing, but oh, that's right, he was a chef. He was a chef at a local hotel, and he had, I forgot, 3 kids or 4 kids, been married for a long time, and that makes you feel that this program was worth it. Like I said, it wasn't 100%, but it sure beat giving these guys probation, 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 and just kind of spinning your wheels after a while. So that was something that was very, okay, how can I put it, eventful for me, very, very satisfying. And then I left the bench in 1999. Then I ran for lieutenant governor in 2002. Had never been in office before. Never ran for elected office. Ran, and we got elected and served with a tremendous governor by the name of Linda Lingle. And I can tell you, they're talking about they're asking questions about relationships between the governor and lieutenant governor. I'm certain, if not positive, that we are the only executive branch where the lieutenant governor and governor actually served as a partnership, and really had a bond and and a team aspect to that executive branch. The governor did what I'm going to be doing with my lieutenant governor, and that is to get that get that person prepared so that if that person ever has to fulfill his or her duty as lieutenant governor, he or she will be able to step in and be governor on day one. And that's exactly what Governor Lingle did with me. She included me in every cabinet meeting. I had direct access to everybody on staff. She assigned various programs to me. Mel's already mentioned one, and that was a drug summit that we put together immediately when we got elected because she knew that was my strength. And so it was, in that time, it was, and it's still out there, methamphetamine. We had a huge epidemic going on. We didn't declare a state of emergency, though, and we didn't shut anything down, but it was an epidemic. And I thought we had done a great job. We stemmed the tide on it. As you all know, you're never going to eliminate the use and abuse of drugs. So, but we did it. I thought we did a great job. We brought, programs together, etc. And I don't know, we left office and the proliferation has come back. So I look forward, if that happens, doing that again. Served for 2 terms, and as you know, I ran twice, once in 2010 and once in 2014 to be governor of the state of Hawaii. People will say, you lost, you failed. And I say, no, no, we didn't fail. It's just that we didn't get enough votes. We were a success because we got our message out there. People understood what we stood for, who we were, and what we were going to do. And, this is part of the reason why I'm running now. I believe that I've been prepared for it. I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have the wisdom. And I think people know that. And as a result of that, they're seeing that and they know we need a change. And we need a change in leadership so we can bring trust and respect back to the executive branch. And more importantly, to balance state government so we truly have transparency and discussion and innovation and, just being honest with the people out there and bring back a two-party system to the state of Hawaii. So that's pretty much my bio in a nutshell. I'm sorry it took a little long there, Mel, but like I said, I've been blessed with so many things in my life, and I just I want to make sure that I am serving the people, and I believe in my God, and I want to serve Him also.
That's why I love this show because candidates or all of our guests they have an hour or however long they want to really share so people have a chance to get to know who you are. The news guys might interview you for 15, 20 minutes and you get a minute and a half or 2 minute blurb. And of course, they're going to take the parts that make it controversial. I watched one thing on during the primary election and the big question is, and I'm not going to ask this question and please, all you viewers, don't even put this in the comments because I ain't asking, but the one question they wanted to know is who you going to vote for president in 2024. Like, people, enough. We get some issues on our state right now. I want to hear what Duke has. I want to hear what the other candidates at the legislature have. I want to know who's going to be able to best serve our communities. And that's what we try to do here with this show. A couple of things. Number one, I'm a product of the Catholic school as well, Immaculate Conception here on Kauai. And I have the record of having the most corporal punishment than any other student in the history of that school. In fact, we had our 40th anniversary for my high school. One of the kids there, my best friend from the Catholic school, said, "Bro, you remember the time you and I had cut school, and we came to school the next day, and the nun was the same thing, Filipino nuns, all Filipino nuns, and they used to make us run to the tree in the yard and rip the branch that they would use to whip us." But I already knew we were going to get whipped, so I wore long shorts under my pants. But she was smart because she whacked me 2 times, and I was laughing. Then she realized, this guy get pants under his pants. So she went for the calves. She whacked me on the calves. Unbelievable. The other thing I wanted to touch on was drug court because it, to me, and I've said this often, it is the best program we have in our state as it relates to our system, our judicial system. I'm the president of the Friends of Quiet Drug Court. I've been there for, I don't know, 15 years, 16 years, I can't remember. And I've seen that program work. And I know a lot of people think, they just got to stay clean, blah. No, they got to stay clean. They got to have a job. They have curfews. It's not, in fact, probation is easier, Lieutenant Governor. Probation is easier, but the benefit of drug court is after they complete, which typically takes a year and a half, maybe 2 years of
Hmm.
hard work and commitment and being sober, they get their charges dismissed. And I
Right.
think that is a great incentive. So
Right.
I
No, you're
just
absolutely right.
want
Yeah.
to thank you for bringing that to Hawaii and making that happen because it has saved a lot of people's lives and families. So thank you.
Yeah, it has, and you're absolutely right about that. About the work ethic. It is hard work. I mean, these guys are people like anybody else, and whatever the reasons are, they got hooked on drugs and they got addicted to it. And so in this program, we found out a lot about how much they wanted it, because initially a lot of them would play that game, as you just stated. And right off the bat, if you are making them toe the line, they have a much better chance of completing this program and being a better person than if you don't. And that's kind of what probation does to a certain extent, right? So it kind of gives them that little slack and they can play that game. And 9 times out of 10, the person that was on probation comes back again. Well, we found out with drug court, we had a very high, what we call negative recidivism rate, and it usually was in the 80s to 90%. People coming back. So, I mean, committing crimes, right? Committing crimes. They might use again, and that is a crime. But I mean, in the sense that they're not ripping off anybody anymore, right? They're not stealing, they're not robbing, they're not burgling, right? They're just they're using again, but they find their way back. So from that aspect, it was a tremendous success, really.
Yeah, we on Kauai, the recidivism rate is over 90%. It's been that way for many years. Our probation officers that run the program do an excellent job. So, yeah, that's an awesome program. And again, thank you for making that happen. So
Yes, sir.
now you now you're making the step. And don't feel bad. I ran for mayor twice. I lost. So I think we have a lot in common. We have a lot in common. I like the way you said it though. We didn't lose. We just didn't have enough votes. I
Hey,
love that. I
serious,
think
right?
that is so true.
Mel. Okay, so here's the thing. You got we just had our primaries. People, you got to listen to this, right? We had our primary. The voter turnout was 40%, right? 40% of all registered voters. You need 50% plus one of the votes to move on, right? Well, in most cases, okay. In a general election, that's what you're going to need, basically, right? You need the majority of the vote. So if we do that, if we divide 40 by half, that's 20%. That means 20% of the voting population, the registered voters, are electing your representatives. That's not a democracy. It's not even close to a democracy. 20%. So what did that mean if you want numbers? So what that meant was 60% did not vote, which totaled about 513,000 people did not vote. 513,000 people. So what does that mean? That means there's a lot of votes out there, because I believe that if you didn't vote in the primary, you weren't a hardcore Democrat, nor were you a hardcore Republican. In other words, you weren't moved to vote by party or by politics or by whatever it might have been. The candidates, what we blame ourselves too. But I think in a lot of instances, what it was, well, and you can disagree with me if you think so, but I think in most instances, people didn't vote because they didn't think their vote mattered. Why should I vote? It's a done deal. Democrats can win again, no problem. Just move on. I'm not even interested in voting. So there's a lot of votes out there, and so that's why when I say we just didn't get enough votes, it's true. There's a lot of votes we can get. I don't have to convert people. I don't have to convert Democrats to vote Republican. I just got to get out there and get those people who didn't vote. And I hate to say it, but on Kauai, a lot of people that didn't vote, especially in Kapa'a. When we're looking at the numbers in Kapa'a, it was pretty bad of the amount of people that did not vote.
39%. That's kind of embarrassing. And there's no disagreement about that. People just believe that their vote doesn't matter anymore, and that's sad. And part of that is the candidates' fault.
Yeah.
We have not done our job in letting the people know how important it is
Right.
to vote,
Right.
and we have not made it attractive for them to make them feel that it is important. I mean, we have tried on this show. I have told every single one of them before you came on tonight. I reminded them again. We had an opportunity in a primary to make some serious change because every seat in the House and Senate was up for grabs.
Hmm.
But when
Hmm.
I look at the results, it's the same people going back in, and but everyone complains and grumbles,
Right.
and it's frustrating.
Right.
So I know a lot of questions are coming in, and I'm going to ask you guys to be nice. I see some little bickering going on already, folks. Come on, you guys know the rules. My block finger is hot tonight, so I don't like block nobody, but I
Go
also
ahead.
like.
I'm ready. Go right ahead.
No, I mean, it's just they're fighting amongst themselves. And listen, guys, before you
Yeah.
came on, LG, I said, I this is God honest truth. I had messages from people. Why am I allowing Republicans to come on the show? See, for me, I don't see D, I don't see R, I see the person. Want to be an intelligent voter. I want to be an informed voter. I want to do my due diligence. I really, to me, I'm going to vote for the person that I believe is going to make it a better place for my family. Period. End of story. Whether they're Democrat, Republican, Independent, I don't care. So, and I can already see the party discussions going on. Let's hang out, guys, and let's enjoy the discussion and learn.
Mm.
So let's start off with for me, one of the good resources for analyzing candidates is the Civil Beat questionnaire. They put out some good questions. I pulled yours today and I read a little bit, and the I love your answers. The biggest problem, the biggest I have it right here. The biggest issue facing Hawaii, and you talked about leadership and structure. So let's start with that. What's your perception of the leadership and structure that we currently have in the state of Hawaii?
Well, I kind of touched upon it a little, but part of the reason why I ran is because of my frustration with um, where we stand with the leadership, the current leadership, and you know, we had the mandates that we had, the quarantines that we had, the shutdowns in regards to businesses, and just the whole policies that we had in regards to this pandemic. And what it did was, to me, uh, not only not thought out very thoroughly, but it was not necessary. We didn't have to shut down the businesses for as long and to the extent that we did. There was no need to mandate anything in regards to um, vaccines or jobs, etc. And definitely when it comes to quarantines, you quarantine people who are sick, and who pose a health risk to the rest of the people. Well, we were quarantining people who were healthy, and we were now mandating that the first responders, who, when this pandemic started, and had no hesitation of going out there and serving the public, whether it's police, fire, or EMS, they went out there and they did their job without a vaccination. And we had no problem as employers. And when I say we, I'm talking about the government, the governor, etc. They had no problem with them going out and doing what they did. But then you fast forward that to when the vaccine was now available. And again, I look at the vaccine as a healthcare decision, and we know that healthcare decisions should be just that. It should be a decision made by every individual. I don't know of a healthcare decision where it's not an individual's choice and to be informed about it. It's called informed consent. And so we were disallowing that as in regards to policy, and we were mandating that they get out there and they do what they do. So, or else, what was the consequence? You lose your job. And that was just wrong from my perspective, just totally wrong. That should never have been done. And then, of course, we had what we did with the schools. And I was my grandson's tutor for a year, sat every day with him in regards to what he was going through virtually. And I can tell you that was just the wrong policy with our students. So all of that created, and the fact that it wasn't communicated very properly, um, and that just created just a lot of mistrust and disrespect from the general public. And it wasn't just a pocket full of people; it was a lot of people that felt that way. And top of that, we have what's going on nationally. in regards to Republicans and Democrats, where you know you can't even have a civil discussion, and to a certain extent that happens in Hawaii. So the spirit of aloha is gone. I think is slowly dissipating. If I disagree with you on something, then I'm called a name, or I'm called this, or I'm called that. We can't even agree to disagree. So that's all out the door. So I just felt that because of what I've really been bred to do, which is as a judge, and as a judge you are trained to be fair and impartial, objective, inclusive. You're a great listener, and you decide based on the merit of something, not on anything that's political. And in politics, a lot of times it's who's for it, who's against it, and what's the political fallout, what's the political consequences of this policy or this law or this program. And that's just not the formula. It's like I said, it's to be fair and impartial, to listen, to be collaborative, to be inclusive, and then make a decision based on what you've heard. And that's what you do as a judge. That's what I did as a litigator. That's what I did as a mediator. And I thought that's the kind of leadership we need now. You also need to be principled. You need to be principled in your beliefs and your thoughts, but it means basically also that you're civil in regards to having discussions, and of course that you're transparent about that. And so that led obviously to where we are right now with this imbalance, and with this imbalance that we have in government, where we have one dominant party, which has been for the longest time. This is what it breeds. It breeds abuse and corruption. And so we have the corruption that we're facing. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen this before, where you have a chief of police in jail, you have a former deputy prosecutor in jail, you have a state senator who's in jail, a state representative who will soon be in jail, you have a former prosecutor indicted, you have one of the biggest donors in the Democrat Party indicted, you have a former mayor who's probably going to get indicted but hasn't been indicted yet, but three of his top cabinet members have been indicted, and more to come. And I don't remember it ever being like this, where we've got this kind of corruption and misabuse and malfeasance and misfeasance happening in state. And I just talked about the elected one. I didn't talk about what's happening in the city and county of Honolulu and the Department of Planning and Permitting department, or the island of Hawaii, where that person in DPP, Department of Planning and Permitting, just pled guilty to what I think embezzling a couple of $1 million in housing projects. So I mean, this is rampant, and from my perspective, it's because of one party dominance, and it breeds corruption and it breeds abuse. And so that's what I meant by we have to reform, our basically our structure in government, as well as bringing trust and respect back to the office of the executive branch, and having principled leadership.
I think, and I talk about this a lot as well. One of the key elements of effective government, effective leadership is transparency. I think being completely open and transparent with the public, your constituents. I don't see that anymore. Not just at the state level, but also at the county levels as well.
Mm.
I mean, a lot of things happen without the public knowing, and then they find out after the fact. One of the bigger issues I saw, and it wasn't just with the pandemic, because it's kind of systemic with this last administration or the current administration, where the governor and his first lieutenant governor had issues. The current lieutenant governor, who's also running for governor, he and the governor never seemed to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And in fact, he chose to go out and basically um, be his own guy. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's productive. And I tell you, it definitely doesn't give the public a sense of trust. And yeah, it just doesn't work when you have the two top leaders of your state that cannot agree and, in fact, talk about each other. How can that be? And that's what I've seen. And uh, I don't know how we fix that. I mean, I think it's systemic with this
That's
administration.
why I'm saying we need a two-party system. I've been saying that, ever since we got elected in 2002. Part of our platform was that a robust two-party system, and that's one way to end up, to deal with corruption. I mean, we got to be candid about this. I mean, that's a big reason why we are seeing what we're seeing. I mean, you can talk about term limits, and you can talk about the Sunshine Law, And the legislature, they felt that the remedy was to have mandatory ethics classes. I mean, come on, we're talking about people who are getting elected. You mean at the ripe old age of 45, you got to be told what ethics is about and how to conduct yourself? I mean, you don't have that wherewithal to know what's right and what's wrong. I mean, you got children at 10 that know what's right and what's wrong. So it's a big part of it, Mel, and to have that kind of that balance. And this is why I'm saying, the biggest statement that the state of Hawaii can make in regards to letting the current dominating party know that they're serious about having a two-party system and some balance is to elect me as governor of the state of Hawaii, because that'll right there that really evens it out. Because now the legislature, we got to work together, and that's what I intend to do. I'm not here to force anything down anybody's throat. I want to be transparent about it, but that's just it. Now things have to be in the open, and if they're not in the open, obviously they'll be called out on it, right? And it spurs discussion because it's like competition now, right? It's who has the better ideas, who has the better solutions to what we're doing, and following through on it, right? Actually following through on what we're saying, our programs, our solutions, etc. Because, I mean, again, empty promises. Why then are we dealing with the same issues that we've been dealing with for the last 12 years, right? Housing, cost of living, education, homelessness, right? All these long-standing issues that have been here for the longest time. And guess what? Things haven't gotten any better. In fact, they've only gotten worse. So it doesn't have to be this way, Mel. It definitely doesn't have to. We can do better. And of course, for me, from my perspective, it's about new leadership, changing it up. Because as you all know, the definition of an insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again. And basically, you're going to elect status quo if you elect Josh Green. Let me just say something about that. But I'll be very brief on this one. Josh Green is running as what? Dr. Josh Green. He's not running as Lieutenant Governor Josh Green. He's running as Dr. Josh Green. And what that says to me is that he never took that office seriously. Because if he did, he would have gone and he would have done what he needed to do as Lieutenant Governor. But he's never done that. In fact, I'm trying to do the research right now, but it's my recollection that within the first year of his election to Lieutenant Governor, he already set up a gubernatorial committee to run for governor. What that means is that at that point in time, it's beyond speculation. He's actually raising money to run as governor, and he's been running for governor since he got elected, and I think that's an affront to not only the people of Hawaii, but those of us who served as lieutenant governor, because it is an institution, it is an elected office, and it's much more than just a placeholder for you to become governor. And that's not what I saw from him. Mel, did you ever see Josh Green and David Ige at a joint press conference during this pandemic, and the governor saying the policy we're adopting right now is a result of a recommendation from Josh Green? I never saw that. And
What I saw was what I saw was two different policies coming out, and a lot of confusion by the members of the public that were not in that inner circle. I have many friends, as probably you do, that work at the state capitol and are part of the governor's cabinet or in staff, and so I had a lot of information about the differences that they had. But you're right, there was never a joint message, and in fact, you had at times you had a third message coming from the Department of Health, and that was a huge problem. And I think that caused a lot of confusion. It divided the community, no doubt about it, and that wasn't very healthy at all. And it didn't help anything. So yeah,
Right.
I can honestly say I was not satisfied at all with how this whole thing was handled.
Mhm.
You mentioned a few of the things that I know I want to respect your time, but you talked about the housing, cost of living. There's over tourism. People are asking about Roe versus Wade. People are asking a lot of questions, but just again, I'll turn it over to you and share with us the what you see as this next administration's priorities going forward and some possible solutions. And you can just pick them in no particular order, but just because I tell the guys on Kauai, they ask me, "What's your most serious issue?" I say, "We have many.
Mm.
The fact that we have one serious issue doesn't mean we're not going to work on the rest. This all has to be worked on simultaneously." But at the state level, what are your thoughts?
Can I ask you, Mel, what would be from a state level, not a county level, although maybe it can be both state and county on Kauai? What's one of the major issues that the people of Kauai are facing right now? You know, um,
If you ask me, and as I stated in my Civil Beat questionnaire, for us on Kauai, it's a solid waste issue because our landfill is going to fill up before we can site a new one, and we don't even have a site. So that's a crisis that we got to work on immediately. But when you look at everything else on our island, it's kind of what I just mentioned. Affordable housing is always an issue. Traffic is getting horrific. A
mm,
lot of that is because of, and a lot of it is because the residential population is growing as well. We're losing a lot of people leaving our state. My two kids live in Oregon because they can't do it here.
mm,
Uh, Tourism is, we are getting bombarded. Our natural resources, our public resources, our local residents cannot enjoy the beaches anymore because it's packed. I mean, it's a whole different Kauai, and it seems the state is just not worried about it. They are more interested in. They said they were going to manage tourism, but they're not managing tourism. I just watched the news tonight. We're breaking all the records of arrivals from 2019 pre-pandemic. So we're not managing tourism. We are obviously overwhelming our resources, but it's no different. It's been the same issues for a long time: the affordable housing, cost of living, uh, infrastructure, traffic, and so forth. I think there's just a whole ton of problems that we got to work. A lot of our issues here, we got to partner with the state,
yeah.
and likewise, a lot of the issues that the state have in the counties, they need to partner with the counties as well.
So first and foremost, in response to that, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to achieve some obviously collaboration and a great working relationship with the state government and the local leaders on all in all the counties, Honolulu, Kauai, Maui, and of course, island of Hawaii, and make sure that we have that relationship and understand that we have this ability to convene, and that means convene those in the private sector, whether it be businesses, whether it be nonprofits, or whatever else we need to get answers. Um, Contrary to what many people believe, just because you're running for office doesn't mean you have the answers to everything, and that's been part of the problem. You get all these candidates running, and all of a sudden you're asking these questions, and they come up with this solution. They say, "Well, that's the solution," and it's proven. Like I said, otherwise, why would we keep talking about it? Why are we keep talking about affordable housing and cost of living and everything else that Mel talked about, tourism, etc.? Because there's no one magic bullet to anything. It's about collaboration. And so obviously, if you get all of the stakeholders involved, and when I say all of them, I mean of course the significant can stakeholders, because obviously we can't get every single individual involved, and that's why you have representative government. Is because people trust in their representatives to do what's best for them. But obviously you got to stay in touch because you have to monitor it, what's being done and what's being said, and of course let your representative know. I think that's where we also fail, but also we don't do a good job because a lot of times it's the person with the loudest voice that is getting most of the attention, and a lot of times that's where the candidates will go, or even people who are representing or be representatives go, because they feel the pressure from them. So obviously building that relationship and getting people more involved in the process, so we can come up with you know some issues you can have a solution. Some issues it's going to take some time and it's going to take some patience to do what you got to do. When it comes to housing, I think the biggest problem we have right now, Mel, is the fact that we have not implemented a solution. We've done a lot of band-aid, I guess you get programs and appropriations and policies that seem to take care of something, and they may for a while, and then but they don't really solve the issue of what we call affordable. I like to call it attainable. And I think one of the biggest problems with that is, first of all, identifying what the problem really is with that. And the problem with that is the fact that we are not directing our attention in regards to homes to our local community. I believe that outside influences have had a devastating effect on the pricing and the availability of homes in the state of Hawaii because we have not been focusing on our local community. And it can start very simply with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. Department of Hawaiian Homelands has a problem with what I say is the lease. You call it a sharecropper's lease because it has no value. The lease that you get at Hawaiian Homes has no value to it. So consequently, you may be granted a lease, but guess what? A lot of these people don't have the money to make a down payment. They can't get the financing. So as such, they can't get on Hawaiian Homelands because they can't build. So if we just make a change to that master lease, and that's something that I can do as the executive, and we make that change, and now they have value to that lease. Now they have access to financing, and we can build that many more homes on Hawaiian Homes. Now, what does that do? It's catering to a local market. We're not violating any laws. We're not discriminating. We're catering to our local market. And as such, I think it's very doable if we just make that one change and, of course, have much more focus and much more priority in regards to the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. We can build at least maybe another 30,000 homes within the next 5 to 10 years on Hawaiian Homelands. That frees up the market outside. It allows more people to not only buy, but also to rent if they have to rent. And that's the beginning of a solution. If we're concentrating on the local market, the local real estate market, when it comes to affordable homes, we also have to focus more on the income as opposed to the market value of what our homes are worth. And what I mean by that is when we have our state projects that developers are engaging in for affordable homes, they have a percentage that they have to meet, whether it be for our residents who are at 80% area median income or 100% area median income, or even lower than that, is 60%. And a lot of times, what happens is they condition the buy of that to a buyback provision after 10 years, and then if you go past that 10 years, and the home just becomes like it's on the market. And this is where I say outside influences can make a difference, and they can have again much more influence on the bid of that home, and with that the availability of homes for our local market. But if we restrict, or we not restrict, but if we tie in the resale of that home to the income of the local market, in other words, we say, okay, you as the first buyer, you're gonna have to sacrifice a little, and when you resell that home 15, 20 years down the line, or even 10 years down the line, it's going to be priced at what the income range that you bought it for. So if you bought it at 80% area median income, that's what you're going to sell it for 10, 15, 20 years down the line to somebody else who is in that income range that you were in. This again limits it up to our local market, and this is how we now begin this process of creating more homes and creating more ability for our local market to buy homes. In addition to that, if you're a first-time buyer, you can get assistance through the various first-time mortgage programs that they have out there. I think Fannie Mae, FHA, etc. But what about those that are not in that category? Well, I think this is where we be creative, and we use some of our I guess you could say our authority or our power as a state to guarantee loans with our full faith and credit as a state government, and we can have programs that would guarantee mortgage loans to those who are in that gap. So we provide financial assistance. It can be financial assistance with the mortgage as well as with the down payments. And one other thing that I'd like to mention that I'm not considering, I'm going to actually implement is I'm going to appoint I'm going to call a housing liaison. And so that's a person from the executive branch that would oversee a lot of the other issues that go along with building affordable homes, and that is in line with permitting, that's in line with regulations, and that's in line with coordinating, what our county governments require and what our state governments require, and making sure it's coordinated, the red tape is not there anymore, and we can get our homes out much quicker. I was just talking to somebody today who says they wanted to talk about a housing project they have on Maui that's been in the books now for over 20 years, and it's affordable. It's an affordable housing project. And why is that? Well, I can, without even speaking to this person, I can tell you, I bet you, um, well, I should say bet, but I can almost guarantee that part of the problem, a big part of the problem, is the inability to get permitting in a timely fashion. Now, you people in business, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In trying to get a permit for whether it's to put your kitchen in, to get the grease traps all set, or whatever else it may take for you to start up that restaurant or small business that you want to create, and with that create jobs. But it's all about the permitting process. So that's some of the ideas that I have in regards to affordable housing mill. And of course, we can go. We can also understand. We also understand that housing, the cost of housing, is a big factor in our cost of living. And so we bring that down. We allow more people to have more wealth because they're going to be homeowners. One of the big things that people forget about is when you buy a home, one of the biggest benefits to buying a home is that you lock in your housing expense because you have a 15 or 20 or 25, 30-year mortgage where your housing expense is locked in. You pay that one amount for 20, 15, 30 years. And so if and as you well know, homes appreciate, and that wealth that you build up as a result of that can be spent for, again, maybe reinvesting in other real estate, stocks, bonds, whatever it may be, so you can build your wealth accordingly. And then once you get rid of that mortgage, now you have that money that adds to your wealth and what you're creating.
Yeah, the Hawaiian Homes I think is the lowest hanging fruits that we can attack right now. The land is there. I went to a lottery once many years ago in Kauai, and I was shocked to see how little people were there. The very small amount of people. And when the lottery was over, I went and I spoke to the people from Hawaiian Homes, and I said, "What's going on?" And they shared with me the list, and I had recognized a bunch of names of which I had in my phone address book, and I called a couple of them. They didn't even know that the lottery was happening. The addresses that they had on file with Hawaiian Homes were no longer valid. So that tells me the system is broken. The communication between the beneficiaries and the Hawaiian Department of Hawaiian Homes is not working, and I was shocked at that. But that's just one of the deals. LG, I want to get to some of our people's questions. I don't know how much time you have, but I want to kind of get to some of the recurring questions. I know you mentioned the GET, that which the GET is a horrible tax. It's a regressive tax. So everybody pays a GET on every step of the the process, the buying and selling process. You mentioned that you would like to see that change. If you want to spend some time on the GET and your recommendation.
Well, the GET, you're right. You're absolutely right about that. It's one of those kind of regressive taxes that affects everybody, but mainly those on the lower end of the income scale. And so, for instance, we've always been advocates of eliminating the GET from the food and medicine that we pay, at the retail stores. And there was a little pushback from the current director of taxation in regards to how that wouldn't be effective because we have, first of all, it would drain the coffers of state government, but also that we have so many credits, etc., that people in a certain income category can take, and as a result of that, probably get more benefit than an elimination of the GET tax on food and medicine. But I also know, and this is through anecdotal cases that I've heard and actually seen, that some of those tax credits that they're talking about is so complicated and unknown to those on the lower end of the income scale that they're not even utilized. They're not even done by the people who can benefit from it. So that goes out the window in regards to um, how that helps the lower end. So from the very beginning, like I said, it's about food and medicine, but also in regards to our doctors, this is an exemption, a GET exemption that should be had for our medical doctors. So our medical doctors get 4% plus GET in regards to their services. And there's a lot of other exemptions in some other professions um, in the state of Hawaii. And you talk to any doctor, and they'll tell you, if that was exempted, it'll make life a lot easier for we as doctors because they don't get reimbursed for that. They don't get reimbursed from that from Medicare and Medicaid, and as such, they eat the costs on that. And so for them, the elimination of that could be huge. And as a result, we could retain more doctors. We could also probably, you know, um, attract more doctors. And, that's an issue. So that's just one of the solutions that we have in regards to the GET. I think what we need to do, Mel, and I will be a big advocate of this, is we need to have a comprehensive review of all the tax credits and all the exemptions that we have in regards to the GET, and get rid of those exemptions and credits that have no relationship to any economic benefit, and look at those that we don't have and that would have a relationship to economic benefit, and impose those. And I think you would see that there'd be a lot of additions and a lot of subtractions from that formula. So with the GET, one thing I do know is that right now on Oahu, we're paying a surcharge for rail, and that is about to expire, if I'm not mistaken, in the year 2026. And now there's going to be a huge discussion probably, but I won't be too premature on this. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt right now. The leaders of rail are saying that, oh, we're going to get this completed within the next 8 years, and we're not going to ask for any more money regarding the construction of rail. So I won't jump to any conclusion on that. I mean, any decision or any position on that until we'll see what happens. But when it comes up to 2026, and if they seek an extension of that GET, I think you guys can see where I stand on that. But again, I don't want to jump to any premature decisions or statements on that. But that's going to be a big part of GET and where we go from that. If we eliminate the GET in its totally, we're going to have to replace it with something because it does bring in. I think it's our second largest um, revenue revenue enhancer, and you'd probably have to exchange that out with a sales tax, which I don't know um, exactly what that would be. I've heard different numbers. Some say 18%, some say a little less, but it's right around that range. I mean, 18 to 20% would be our sales tax. And can you imagine that in regards to just buying your basic your necessities of clothing, food, and medicine, etc. But right now, the GET is where it stands, and like I said, I think we can do a better job in reviewing it. And again, either adding exemptions, taking away exemptions, and the same would be with tax credits because tax credits can perform the same function if we added or gave exemptions to our GET.
I think people got to understand that. I would love to see a complete abolishment of the GET and going towards a sales tax. What the people see right now, they see 4.5% or four, whatever.
Oh, yes, it seems low, right? 4.5. What's four and a
But
half?
what you're not seeing is the added cost in the sales price that is
Yeah,
uh, covering all the increases of all the taxes from the wholesaler to the distributor. So I would love to see that study being done to tell us exactly what that number would
people don't
be.
understand the progression of the GET tax. It
Yeah,
starts from
it,
when something just comes to the state of Hawaii, and as a lot of commentators have said, if it moves, it's taxed. Um,
exactly.
and that's services now as well as goods.
Yeah,
So my service as an attorney, I'm subject to a GET tax. But a good that comes in here off the boat, as soon as Pasha and Matson are paying a GET on that. And when they give it to the wholesaler, the wholesaler's paying a GET tax on that. And then when the
right.
wholesaler gives it to the distributor, they're paying a 4% tax on that. And then when the retailer sells it to the consumer, they're paying a 4% tax on that. So as you
Right.
just pointed out, Mel, you see how the price increases.
The compounding effect. I don't want to misspeak, but I believe that it was over 20% is what the end result. That's what we're paying at the end of the day. So that study would be it would be interesting. How much time you got, LG? You got a few
Go
minutes that
ahead.
you
Go
can.
ahead. No, I'm
Okay,
good.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just because again, um, healthcare. Let me get to DOE real quick because I think the DOE, a lot of criticisms. I just saw the story about no, Mara, that's not how taxes works everywhere. Everywhere else has a sales tax. Only the end buyer pays, and that's the difference. The GET is a very regressive tax, and it's horrible. Anyway, the DOE just went through, or BOE or whatever, went through this big process to hire a new administrator. They hired him, and the first thing they do is hire two, what was it, $190,000 a year positions to help him free up his time so he can meet with the politicians. And I, I take offense to that. I think it's a slap in our face. Again, we have not chatted, LG, for probably close to 20 years. So, what's your thought on that?
Well, Mel, let me ask you this question. Did you know about that? Did you know that there was something out there regarding the hiring of two additional, I guess you could say, assistant superintendents?
Hell, absolutely not. I,
I
I
didn't know
saw
about
the,
that.
yeah, I saw after they were hired. After they were hired.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no.
So, I start with that first and foremost. And I've been a bit, this has been I've always advocated this. Uh, Once elected, I'm going to authorize a independent now, not government, not legislative, not agency, not department, a independent financial and management audit of the DOE. And it's real simple. The reason for that is because I believe that they have more than enough money at the DOE to cover a whole bunch of stuff. And that includes, and this is a part of my platform in regards to teachers in the DOE, is that our teachers are underpaid. Our teachers need to be paid a lot more than what they're being paid now. Now, you may disagree with me in regards to how we pay, how that's done, and I believe it should be based on merit. I don't believe that we should be doing it across the board, step by step. Everybody gets the same raise that every teacher gets, and it depends on years of service as opposed to merit. I really believe that it should be based on that. But the bottom line, I think, which most of us agree on, is that our teachers should be paid much more than what they're getting right now, and that would help to a large extent the hiring and retention problem that we have with our teachers. They also mentioned workforce housing, and yeah, that's a part of it. But again, you don't want band-aid approaches to solving something that requires much more thought and much more sustainability. I gave you some of my ideas on that, and obviously that would encompass teachers also. But the financial audit would now give us the basis for how do we restructure the Department of Education so it becomes much more efficient. But more importantly, we know how the money is being spent and where we can make the adjustments in the allocations in regards to how we spend the money. So that, as well as the fact that teachers need to teach, they need to teach. I substituted for about 2 years, not so long ago, 2 years straight. And the big takeaway I had was one was that the teachers are bogged down with reports and mandates from the federal government and also here locally. Locally from the Board of Education. And they just don't have the time to just be teachers. That's what they want to do. They want to teach their students, but they're always in training or they're filing reports or, you know, looking at or accomplishing other mandates that they shouldn't be doing. And so as a result of that, they just can't teach. And this is a big part of it too, that, you can't legislate behavior or morality. And that is, parents need to be much more involved in their children's education than they are right now. And I'm talking about in our public school system. On the private school level, you see more of it. Well, I think mainly because when you have skin in the game, you're much more involved with what your children are doing. When you're paying that tuition, that's a little bit more than what you would be paying, and actually you're paying double because your taxes are providing the public education for our other students, and then you're paying for the private school education that you're having for your children, which is by your decision. So no crying about that. But all I'm saying is when you have skin in the game, obviously you pay more attention to what your children are doing, what they're learning, etc., and so you're more involved. But you start with that, and I think that'll make a huge difference in regards to how we change things structurally with the DOE, and of course where the money is being spent. This thing about again, I had no idea that had been appropriated or passed or authorized by the legislature. I believe it was by the legislature. And if not, then
It hasn't been passed by the legislature because they're using existing funding. These are temporary. Now, if I'm calling my representatives and my senator to ask them, are you guys going to support that? Because that'd be a major component to whether or not I'm going to vote for you. See, they hired these two people. They're doing a contract using existing unexpended revenue,
there you go.
and they're hoping they didn't even go through a process. They just picked people that they know and like, and then at the next budget session they're going to seek the funding to continue the positions, and that is where the legislature needs to stand up and say no, not until we get an audit, not until we hired you, my friend, because you said you could do the job.
Exactly.
We didn't
I've
hire you
always been a
to go
proponent,
to.
and so thank you for clarifying that in regards to, because that's exactly what I was saying, right? There's enough money out there. Obviously, they got the money from existing funds. But I've also when I remember, I think the change came back in 2014 when we went from an elected school board to an appointed school board. And they asked me that question if I was in favor of that. I said, well, I think an elected school board, an appointed school board gives a little more accountability to the governor. But for me, what was ideal and optimal was not to have a school board at all, but allow me to appoint the superintendent, because now that's directly on me. And it's now voters can say, well, who are you going to appoint as the next superintendent? And obviously now I am accountable. And I'm accountable not only for the appointment, but also for the job that person does. You take away all of you take away all the politics and everything else that goes with a school board, and you allow policy now to be developed at the local level. So you go back to your parent associations and organizations at the local level, at elementary schools and intermediate schools, and they can help with the teachers, with the principals, with the parents, right, with the students. Now they're basically administering, I should say, developing their policy, and you take it out of the state level, except you have that superintendent that is now accountable to me, but more importantly to the people who elected me. And I thought that was a better way to go. But instead, voters chose, and they went with the appointed school board. And so you have that. The governor gets to appoint the school board, but guess who appoints the superintendent? Yeah, the school board. And so it's kind of like one step removed from the governor again, because the governor can say, well, I appointed the school board, but I can't get rid of all of them in one stroke. So we kind of live with the superintendent that we have. Plus, the governor has really no input in regards to that superintendent is B, because when you appoint people to a board or commission, you expect them that they would be doing the job that needs to be done and in line and in sync with what your policies and your programs might be. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. So anyway, that's I wanted to just get that in, Mel, because I think that's important that people understand that in
Yeah.
regards to our superintendent, because you're right, brand new superintendent, you're hoping that things are going to be now a fresh start, right? Here we go. And on top of that, local superintendent, right? We don't have somebody that's coming in from New Jersey or Florida or California and coming to Hawaii for the first time and now trying to get caught up with what's been happening and accordingly make policies, etc. Right? So I thought it was a good start, but it's good start went sour when I heard what you got two now. And they were going to be
Yeah.
four. I think it was going to be four, but they pared it down to two. So what's the purpose of that? Really, I don't know.
Almost $600,000
Yeah.
with the fringes. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Couple more questions. Is that okay?
Okay, sure.
All right. Because
Sure.
I see in the comments, they're like kind of saying that you're avoiding a question. Well, he cannot avoid a question that he was never asked. So blame me, don't blame him. I'm trying to get on the hot topics that I think a lot of people are interested in, or maybe because I am. I kind of want to pick his brain. Hospital situation right now, crisis levels. Not necessarily because of COVID, but just because we're short on workers. Kaiser just went on strike. Psychiatric services being affected across the country, but it's definitely affecting here. Not sure how much the governor can do with these private hospitals, but what can we do to ensure, and not so much just the capacity, but how do we ensure that everyone in our state has access to adequate and proper preventive health care? I'll save the last question for the best
Part of
question
that
for
problem
last.
is what I alluded to earlier in regards to the GET for our medical profession. And that may seem like it's not, but it is. I've spoken to many doctors, and they've all mentioned to me the fact that Medicare and Medicaid doesn't provide them with any reimbursement of their GET, and a lot of the patients that they see are being their insurance coverage is by Medicare and Medicaid, and so that's a huge thing. We also talk about not having enough doctors and practitioners in the state of Hawaii. So how can we increase that? And of course, things such as forgiveness of loans, um, having more people admitted to the John A. Burns School of Medicine, and that's all. I think those are things that could address our shortage of doctors in regards to you know not only fulfilling the needs that we have in general practitioners and the other specialties that we're lacking, but I think it also is something that kind of highlights where we're deficient in the system. And when I say that, what I mean is that uh, adding more students to the medical school is doable. It can be done, but we don't have the staff. We don't have the personnel to do that. So we obviously have to make sure that we can add more staff to that, so we can add more um, to our medical school. But the other issue that I brought up in regards to forgiveness of student loans, um, I'm not an advocate of that, but I can understand why that could possibly persuade somebody to stay in the state of Hawaii, and especially those who are coming home. And I somebody came up with I guess maybe you could call it a compromise in regards to that, wherein we cap the amount that is being going to be waived, but it's also at a price, and the price is that you will commit for at least 5 years, to practice in the areas where we have the most need for whatever your specialty may be. And so you practice there, you commit for 5 years. About 50% of your loans will be forgiven, but they're not all forgiven at one time. They're forgiven in increments. So first year that you serve, and accordingly up to that 5 years, and then once you fulfill that commitment, we're very hopeful that you will not only just not just kind of stay around for a couple more years, but you will then stay and make that your home, and practice where we need it the most, and mainly in the rural areas in our neighbor islands. And so those are basically a couple of ways that we can provide, or trying to address that shortage that we have. When it comes to facilities, obviously for public hospitals, I think obviously more resources need to be allocated. I don't know what the budget is in regards to that, but for our private um, hospitals, I think it's just a matter of commitment from their part, and doing what's needed to add more beds, resources, etc. The biggest provider we have is Queens, and I know that they said they've committed to adding not only more hospital beds, but also more services in addition to that, as well as other resources that may be needed. I think Hawaii Pacific Health has said the same thing. Kaiser has said the same thing. So I'm kind of waiting for them uh, I guess to start what they said they would do. If there's ever an emergency situation where we need more beds and we need more space to treat people medically, this is where our relationship with the military, I think, is very important, because that would not be a problem with the military in regards to providing the triage that we would need, whether it be tents or the facilities that are needed to do that. I think they could also provide some personnel, and that would be your go-to, I guess, in an emergency situation. But this is not new, Mel. What you're raising right now, it's always been a long-standing issue. We said we needed to address this. Even when I was in office, and at that point in time, one of the I guess the most prevalent solution that a lot of doctors said that needed to be done was tort reform. And because a lot of the doctors are paying so much in regards to liability insurance, that it was not only preventing a lot of doctors from coming to Hawaii, but also having a lot of them leave. And I saw a lot of anecdotal cases in which doctors left because of that. You know, the premium that they were paying was so high, and it was something that just needed to be have some reform on. To my knowledge, they've never done that. A lot of doctors have left. The shortage that we had back then has increased to what it is now, which I believe is like over 500 to 700 doctors that we have a shortage of. I know the use of nurse practitioners has also been a something that has been proposed, so how we can provide more services. But again, it comes back down to having that commitment with what we can afford from state government for our public facilities, and doing the best that we can to add on what we need. But when it comes to just hiring and retention, what I mentioned earlier, I think are some of the solutions that we need to implement immediately, so we can shore up this shortage that we have with our doctors, as well as some of the other things that have been said in the past. Yeah, that is tort reform, and of course the administration of insurance, and the burden that they place on our providers in regards to what they need to do so that they can get coverage. I know HMSA has done some things which they feel has improved that, but I also hear from doctors that no, it's not really improving things. So, we have to have another convening of the providers and what we have with our doctors to see if we can do something better. One thing that Hawaii does a great job of, and you talked about access, is we have our Hawaii Prepaid Healthcare Act, which was enacted, maybe 60 years ago, which requires employers to provide medical insurance to their full-time employees. That has been a tremendous asset for the people of Hawaii. And I think at this point in time, as I speak, there's only about maybe 6 to 7% of our population, which includes women and children and the vulnerable, who do not have insurance coverage. And I think that's tremendous. It says a lot about where our priorities are, and how we handle access to medical coverage. I mean, to medical um, health. So that's where I stand on that, Mel. I know it's an issue, like I said, that's been around for a while, and obviously the recommendations and suggestions keep coming in, and I want to hear it mainly from our medical field, but also from people who have been a part of that. Um, you know, Whatever problem they may have had medically, and what they've experienced.
Yeah, I mean it's housing also impacts. So you talked earlier about band-aid solutions. I mean it's we got to get to the root causes of the problem. Housing also prevents people are moving away. A lot of our local talent, local skilled doctors, nurses are moving away because of housing issues. You know, when I graduated from high school, I couldn't afford college. I joined the military because they had a tuition waiver program, and military term is 4 years, but I could use the tuition waiver program at any UH facility, any UH campus, for up to a bachelor's degree. But I had to commit to serve 6 years. So, in other words, I would have had to re enlist it. I had to commit to re enlist for at least another 2 years, or I pay the tuition waiver back. Everything that I had been provided, I would have had to pay back with my own money. And I think that's kind of what you were mentioning, where this recent $10,000 student loan forgiveness that's coming from our national federal government. Um, I question the fairness, but if they structured it in a way where these types of occupations that are what we need, and it comes with a commitment that yeah, you want to participate and you want taxpayers to help you pay, then there is a cost, and that cost is your commitment to serve your community for X amount of years. I think that's probably a better way to go, because then you retain the talent,
Yeah,
whatever state you're at,
yeah,
whatever state you're at.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, last question. This is the one that's been popping up, and I think they think I'm trying to avoid the question. I'm not. Women's rights with their body, which is all because of the recent Roe versus Wade. I've heard your responses on several debates, but I'll give you that opportunity to share with our viewers your thoughts on that.
Yeah. My response hasn't changed. It's I support life. I support life from conception to death. That's always been my position. That's been my value, my principle, based on my faith, and it'll remain until I die. Well, when it comes to this issue of abortion, because that's what you're talking about is abortion, all the Supreme Court did was say now the ultimate arbiter of that, the ultimate legal arbiter of that issue is the state legislature, where it started. Hawaii was the first state in the country that adopted an abortion law and made it legal, and it came from our state legislature. It didn't come from the federal government. It came from our legislature, and that's what the Supreme Court said where it belongs, and that's where it is right now. And so, with that said, abortion has not changed. The law hasn't changed. Nothing has changed in the state of Hawaii. Nothing. And from my perspective, people who raise that issue are just trying to distract and divide, and for Hawaii at least, and that just doesn't just it shouldn't be addressed. I mean, you know where I stand. You know what my position is on that, and as an executive in the executive branch, I can't change that. I can't affect that in any way. That has to come from the legislative branch. So if you want to change it one way or the other, whether you want to increase any rights or if you want to decrease rights, you got to look at your legislative representative. And if that's somebody that's in line with you, then great. I guess you vote for them. If it's somebody who's not in line with you, then I guess you don't vote for that person and you vote for somebody else. And when you get the requisite amount of representatives who are in line with what you believe it should be, then they will legislate accordingly. Now, once they legislate accordingly, now it becomes an issue with me because I have the power of the veto, and I can either veto it, I can let it go into law, or I can do it. I can let it go into law without my signature. My inclination at this point in time, if there was to be any changes to our abortion laws, I would have to review it first, see where what it says exactly, and then decide accordingly. You know what my principles are, so you know where I'm leaning. But I can't say flat out right now that if there was a law that was passed by the legislature and they abolished abortion in its entirety, that I would not veto it. I probably wouldn't veto it. I probably would not veto it. But that remains to be seen. So instead of speculating and just throwing out things that really are not at this point in time just not relevant in regards to our issues of, as we discussed, housing and cost of living and education. I don't see why people should be putting this at the top of the list because it's not. It's just not there. So let's move on, Hawaii. Let's talk about what really is affecting us, and I think you all know what that is, and that is what we've been talking about from day one, which is to bring in trust, respect, and balance back to state government. Let's talk about the vacuum, the vacuum that we have right now in leadership. Let's talk about this lack of transparency and balance that we have in state government. This political dominance that we have right now that has caused all of this corruption and abuse that we see. I don't think you can push that aside lightly and say, well, that's not as important as abortion is. I mean, because it's not. What's important right now is that we get our house in order and we move forward. I mean, a lot of people right now that I've heard are fed up, and I'm not going to allow myself to be distracted from that and to fulfill the issues and the needs that we have as a state government right now. So anyway, that's my answer, Mel. On whether you agree with me or disagree with me, one thing you're always going to get is you're going to get my truthful answer, and it's going to be as cogent as I can make it be. But if we agree, great. If we disagree, yeah, I hope you can agree to disagree and not call me names and not say I'm this and say I'm that, because I'm not going to do that to you. I don't care what you say. I'm just not going to be having that same venom and that same vile that some people have when you talk about issues such as this, Mel. And I hope we as leaders can stick to that and stay and stay on that course, because it comes from a lot of leaders too who digress and start getting involved in that just that ugliness that we don't want to have seen in our home Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm not smiling. I'm not smirking. I'm just hearing you, and I'm reading the comments as it's going up, and a lot of people really appreciate the honesty, the fact that you are not avoiding any questions, that you just respond. I mean, it is what it is, right? You have your beliefs. Everyone else has a right to their
Yeah.
beliefs.
And
I
I
respect
respect that. I
everybody. Yeah,
respect
absolutely.
everybody's belief, Mel. And they might not
I,
believe that, but I do. I really do.
well, I know you for such a long time, and although we haven't been in contact for a long time, I know your heart because I've seen the work with you to some extent. Gosh, 15, 20 years ago now. So I mean, it's for me, it is what it is. But I know for our viewers who may not know you, may not even have some may have not been around when you were the lieutenant governor or a judge. But yeah, it's always really pleasing for me as the host of the show to hear people come out and speak the truth. It just be honest. I mean, likewise for me. I mean, I get hate messages all the time. A lot of it from the COVID stance I took, which in some cases, LG, we do not agree. But I do agree with you that the communication, the handling of everything, I think the misinformation went out to the public all created a problem that I think just made the situation and the recovery worse and taking a longer time. That well, I will agree with you. Uh, the, this whole thing with politics, and there was a time where uh, Danny Noy and what's the senator from Alaska? I can't remember his name. He passed away.
Stevens.
The,
Stevens.
the,
Senator
the Dem-
Stevens.
yes, Democrat and Republican, two of the most powerful guys in Congress at the time, were able to have decent civil discussions, get support, bipartisan support on issues that affected our country. We benefited here in Hawaii with Alaska support, and likewise, vice versa. That no longer exists in Congress. It is so ugly in Congress right now. I watch the debates on TV. I see the Democratic candidates, and again, I'm not here. I'm just stating my observations. I'm just stating my observations. We lose viewers every time I speak because, like you, I speak the truth. I speak what's on my heart.
Uh,
I saw a whole different approach. I've never. I mean, the Republican debate was kind of interesting actually. Where the media got upset that you guys weren't asking each other questions. The media is playing a very unfair role in elections across the state, and that is not cool. Right after the primary election, the Star Advertiser came out and highlighted the differences that the Republican governor and lieutenant governor candidates have. Like, where was the differences? I didn't see no differences, but that's just what I call the limiting factors of politics. And if you're on the media side, good on you. If you're not, well, you got to work harder. You got to work
Oh,
harder to
thank you
get
for
the votes.
that, Mel, and I appreciate everything you said. And yeah, so we have some differences on what the policies were and how COVID was handled. But I can tell you right now, like you said, we have an agreement on the communication part. But even for like I said, I disagreed with some of the things that the governor did. But I know how to submit to authority, and I follow the policies and the mandates. And but that doesn't mean I can't express myself. And likewise with everybody on this podcast, in this chat. I mean, you express yourself great, but let's keep it where it needs to be, which is respectful and civil, and let's try to move on. This is why again you elect representatives, so they make the decisions, and you submit to that authority and you move on. And this is why elections are so important, because elections do have consequences, and because we don't seem to understand that. It's like with the appointment, and I'll bring up another issue, I guess. It's like with the appointment of judges. The governor of the state of Hawaii has that power to appoint judges. And that's just the consequence of an election. So in this case, if I get elected, I'm probably going to have the ability to appoint judges. If Josh Green gets elected, he'll have that ability to appoint judges. That's just the consequence of an election. So if you're going to complain about that later, and because you didn't like the selection or the appointment that was made, and by the way, it's also by consent, confirmation and consent by the Senate. So you don't have just the governor just saying this is it. It has to be confirmed and consented by the legislature. And of course, in this state, when this kind of one party dominance that you have, it's going to be very difficult for me to probably get my nominations through. I went through that with Governor Lingo. We had the most rejections out in regards to judges simply because of what it was. But that's the way it was. That's the process, and so we move accordingly. So again, I think you and I are just on the same boat and the same level when we're talking about how we need to move forward with this election. this process that we're going through right now, and hopefully it'll be a lot different when we start up the next legislative session and you start up your next council session, and it can be more civil, it can be much more transparent, it can be much more innovative, and we get good results and we get good solutions and we get we better everything for the people of Hawaii.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Uh, this podcast is the most weird phenomenon I've seen. So right now we have like 59, maybe like 70 or 80 live viewers. But before you go sleep tonight, go to my Facebook page and it'll gonna be like 500. And then you wake up in the morning, it'll be like 1,000. A lot of the elected officials, a lot of the political leaders will tune in after we go off the air because they don't want their names to be seen up on the. It's bizarre. It is so bizarre. So the word definitely will get out, and a lot of people will get to see this tonight. So I want to thank you for spending the extra time with us. I am going to give you a few minutes. I know you covered a lot, but your opportunity to share with our viewers right now why they should vote for you in November.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you for everybody who stayed on and your comments and just paying attention to what was being said. I firmly believe that this election comes down to two things. It comes down to, again, as I said, trust and respect with the executive branch, and of course, balance in government. And when I say balance, I'm talking about a robust two-party system. For me, I believe that our moral compass is broken, that we have a dissipation of the spirit of the law in the state of Hawaii, and that needs to come back. I believe that my experience in regards to my professional and personal life have prepared me to lead at this point in time. We face a lot of uncertainty right now, and like I said, this vacuum of leadership needs to be eliminated. So you take my 8 years as lieutenant governor, and when I say 8 years as lieutenant governor, I mean that I served as lieutenant governor with Governor Lingo and learned a lot, and not only learned a lot, but am ready, willing, and able to serve from day one. I know exactly what needs to be done. A cabinet needs to be gathered and put together immediately. They need to be confirmed. We need to look at the budget that's going to be proposed by the current administration, make the amendments that we need to make because it has to get to the legislature, and then move accordingly. The directors will play a big part in regards to the amendments that we make to that budget. So that means principal leadership. 8 years as lieutenant governor, 12 years as a full-time and part-time judge, which has given me the ability to be fair and impartial, to be independent, objective, to be a good listener, to understand what it means to advocate both for and against, to listen to both sides, to mediate when it needs to be mediated, and of course to be inclusive and to take everyone's perspective into consideration. And at the end, the decision is going to be made for the good of all the people of Hawaii, not just some, not just a special faction, not just because I could lose votes or I could gain votes if I decided a policy one way or the other. You need to work with the legislature. I need to collaborate with them from day one, but they in turn are also going to know that they need to collaborate with me. And we're going to know that we're going to be transparent. So as a result of that, through our transparency, we're going to be that much better. We're going to have greater discussion. We're not going to be able to hide things. We're going to be more creative. We're going to be more innovative. We're going to come up with better solutions. Why? Because competition breeds excellence. I really believe that. When you have competition, which is what you're going to have with a robust two-party system, you're going to come up with better solutions. And not only going to be better solutions, but they're going to have to be acted upon. Why? Because if they're not acted upon, you'll be called out on them. Empty promises are no longer going to be there. That's what a balanced government looks like. And of course, moving towards the spirit of aloha. Many of you might not know, but the spirit of aloha is codified in our statutes under 5.7.5 of our Hawaii Revised Statutes. It defines what the spirit of aloha is, and it's actually was written so it applied to all of our elected officials, elected representatives, governor, lieutenant governor, state house representatives, state senate representatives, mayors, county council people, judges, etc. And it was to govern in the spirit of aloha. You take the values of aloha in the letters of aloha, and you're talking about where you're agreeable, where you're kind, where you have unity, where you have humbleness, and where you have patience. I mean, those are the virtues of aloha. And of course, as we all know, when you act in the spirit of aloha, you don't expect anything when you give something, but when you receive something, you always give back. And that's what we are lacking right now, and that's what I think I stand for. 4 children, 8 grandchildren, 40 years of marriage. I think says a lot. A coach, a teacher right now, and of course, just working with students, I think says a lot, and says, where my roots are. Keikioka, born and raised here. I think I have a lot of roots, not only on Oahu, but I just think throughout the state of Hawaii, because, we understand what it means to be a person who is born and raised in the state of Hawaii, and what it means to be, not only just you know, residents of the state, but good stewards of the state of Hawaii. And we have to live accordingly. We have to model accordingly. So, with all of that said, I just humbly ask for your vote. I humbly ask that you are open to the change that we need and the balance that we need in state government. And so, let's do this together. Let's do this with unison, and let's rock the boat, and let's make it happen in the state of Hawaii. Something that hasn't happened in a few years, and that is to have a robust two-party system, and we can make the changes that we need to make. So, with that, Mel, I say thank you very much. Aloha keokua, and of course, God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you spending the extra half an hour, actually more than that now, with us. I hope our viewers appreciate, again, the candid, open discussion. That's what we hope to bring to you folks. Tomorrow night, again, Wednesday, I'll be ironically, at a drug court conference Wednesday, Thursday. I don't know if you'll be around, LG. It'll be at the Alamona Hotel, so I'm not sure
Oh,
if you
okay. I didn't know
probably
that.
see some old people, old friends that are
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I'm really looking forward to learning about the new trends and what's happening across the country with drug courts. So I'll be on Oahu on Wednesday and Thursday. So no show on Wednesday night, folks. We are moving Wednesday night show to tomorrow night. We have a candidate for State House District 51, Kukuna Kamatoth. I don't know her, but I cannot wait for that discussion. It should be lively, I think, based on what I've heard. But anyway, for all of you guys, appreciate you guys always hanging out with us. Again, LG, thank you for joining us. You guys all stay safe. God bless. We love you guys. We love you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Aloha.
Aloha, brother.